Hi, I'm Joséphine,
I'm Paul.
and this is our video presentation of Dialogic Devising Strategies of Playful Interrogation.
Drawing on the elements of movement as described by Rudolf Laban and Margaret Dobler, and the aleatoric compositions as informed by John Cage, we developed a choreographic methodology termed Dialogic Devising that could be applied across all levels of training regardless of age and experience. The demands of standardized testing in the US required that we teach emerging classroom educators content-based arts pedagogy that use the arts to teach other subjects rather than being able to focus solely upon the arts. This catalyzed our investigation of how the choreographic prompts could be used to stimulate embodied explorations of abstract concepts. In response, our creative project became focused upon the development of text movement works. Over the years, we have discovered that not only is dialogic devising incredibly efficient and prolific, it is extremely effective in creating complex, multi-layered, polyvocal, cross-disciplinary performance. Initially, we utilized journaling with our collaborators as a tool to access free-flow automatic writing, which, after some refinement, might serve as source for our texts and scripts. We have found, however, that just as true with movement and invention, giving our collaborators specific, short, and simple rubrics and utilizing the same conceptually based words as we use for the movement provides the most consistent and creative output for writing text. This also eliminated the need for refinement of raw journal entries. Imposing text rubrics rendered completed text works. For example, rubrics utilizing the 3-line rhythmic structure of a haiku or the 4-line Latvian Daina folk songs have been effective prompts for individual writing assignments.
Patient drip, distilled in time. The mouse at the fountain silences a squeak. Tin, tin, tin. He dares not speak.
The surrealist exquisite corpse game with the required incorporation of different specific conceptually based words is useful for collective authorship. As many of our collaborators have been from non-English speaking dominant countries, we have incorporated multiple languages and within projects with or without English translation. As a rule, we do not alter the text as it has been written. Any typos we include. Any misspellings or inconsistencies with grammar and or punctuation we preserve. We find that any perceived clumsy interpretation of text is exactly as it should be. We have found that the movement and or writing rubrics may be used for the creation of sound phrases. Free online digital recording and editing programs make it possible for all the collaborators to produce wonderful source material for sound scores. Likewise, visual elements are derived from the original conceptual discussions and or the process of developing the text, movement, and sound.
Drawing inspiration from John Cage's scores for music and theater works, we utilized chance operations to assemble the text, movement, sound, and visual elements in a performance installation, providing a layering of multi-genre responses to the same initial thematic concept. The juxtaposition of different interrelated elements created individually and collectively within the performance provides a polyvocal tapestry of transdisciplinary dialogue, a dialogic product of a dialogical process that continues the process of playful interrogation.
Our project continually returns to an exploration of place and the sense of belonging to place that fosters community. We are especially drawn to artist residencies in small, rural communities as they tend to hold our feet to the fire as we strive to truly adhere to our slogan, "We go where the work takes us."
Our first community-based project with residents of the tiny village of Costa de Trex, just outside of Assisi, made us acutely aware that securing buy-in from the participants is the most important step of collaborative projects with community, and that trust is earned over time.
In that case, it really wasn't until our final meeting with our collaborators that we finally fully earned their trust. Paradoxically, they had to buy into the process before participating fully in the process, but that buy-in was only secured through their participation in the process. The realities and limitations of these residencies has required us to surrender to where the process leads, rather than forcing the process to fit preordained visions of the end product. This release of expectations has made the work much more playful and unconstrained, and therefore more productive and prolific.
We hold the conviction that performance installations informed by interrogations of place are best cited in place, rather than reified within traditional theatrical or gallery spaces. While natural settings provide their own logistical issues to resolve, we have found great freedom to focus more upon what the work really is about when we embrace the limitations and possibilities of place and release ourselves from the typical fine arts practice that present rarefied allusions to place out of place. On-site performance installations require an awareness of the shifting nature of place that one may be oblivious to within climate, temperature, and light-controlled art spaces. It also requires a release from our theatrical training to control all elements to create the most seamless illusion for the audience.
After frantically trying to relight candles for the first half hour of our Caminho Iluminado installation at the Jardim de Igreja Matriz in Mejejana, Portugal, on a gusty night, we began to realize that our efforts were part of the performance that, rather than spoiling the installation for our guests, added to the event. After waiting out a thunderous downpour at Birdsong Nature Center, we quickly installed over 200 fragile lanterns on site while spectators assembled to view the choreographic responses to sight.
At the end of the first performance of the choreography, we realized that the cloud-covered night in the rural setting was far darker than we had imagined, and would make a planned second performance fruitless, as the dancers would not be seen. Our post-performance experience was further enhanced by the adrenaline rush of audience and cast members hurriedly striking the installation before the next round of lightning storms and downpours broke loose.
This was a magical, unexpected, embodied, weather-induced ritual experience of a performance installation of place that could never be replicated within four walls.
As we continue to expand our project, we have come to know that any attempt to recreate an experience after it has already been experienced is a fruitless exercise. Our work by necessity embraces the ephemeral nature of performance and the ephemerality of nature. We incorporate the process within the product, which itself is just another iteration of process. We have no interest in striving towards timeless monuments to our creative endeavors. The performance installation exists in a particular moment and place. Despite the pressure to reproduce and disseminate, we surrender to the one-off.
As most of what we pursue are one-off projects, never intended for permanent exhibition nor as repertory works to be recreated, the only way the long amount of time and effort invested in rehearsal and production compared to the very short public exhibition for usually very small audiences can make any sense is a reordering of priorities into a non-hierarchical valuing of the entire process of creation, public exhibition, and post-production so that the public performance is just one part of a very valuable process.
Even if it is like our Birch Loops environmental installation in a forest in Haminkiero, Finland, something that is meant to continue after we have left it, we celebrate the realization that it will never be static, continuing to grow or decay into something else.
Men's up. Men's up crawl. Men's up crawl back. Men's up crawl back. Right. Men's up crawl back right. Men's up crawl back. Men's up crawl. Men's up.
Recently, with Laptop Performance Laboratory Modular Play, we explored the possibility of creating a work that worked both as iterative process and as unique one-off project. For over a year, 8 collaborators from Australia, Canada, Latvia, and across the US met via the internet using Dialogic Devising to collectively and individually create text, movement, and sound modules that were all responding to the same thematic material. As was true with other Dialogic Devising projects, the process was remarkably prolific. Our intent was to create performance modules that could be structured for 1 to 8 performers, or even completely telematically in any setting to create a flexible work that would be a unique one-off each time it was performed, while still being essentially the same work. So far, we have performed 5 different iterations of it, with a 6th iteration scheduled for the Rehappening Festival at Black Mountain College in April. It is through the iterations that we have really gained an appreciation for the dialogic interaction of the various elements of text, sound, movement, and visual elements. By performing these modules structured in various manners arrived at by chance operations, we gained a far deeper knowledge of text, movement, sounds, and images that we had created.
To continue our creative research, the realities of securing funding for future projects and the retention, tenure, and promotion process in academic settings must be negotiated. This has caused us to reevaluate the entire system of documentation. Are we really surrendering to the one-off if we are so focused on the documentation that we neglect to reside in the experience of our own event? Slick documentation of previous work is required as justification for one's continued existence as an artist-scholar supported by established institutions, especially those based in the U.S. that, since the ascension of Reagan's version of Thatcherism, have fully embraced capitalist market values as the measure of all creative research. Dialogic devising does lead to standalone video performance soundtracks and photo essays. However, our primary emphasis continues to be the live one-off performance installation, as recorded and edited works cannot replicate the live experience.
Our usual tactic to document live events has been for Joe to take photographs and Paul to video. This approach has provided wonderful documentation of the work, but it precludes us from actually being fully present as participants during the culminating part of the process, ultimately leading to a disconnected or disappointed emotion of being cheated from the full fruits of our labor.
There is the option for dissemination of work via conference presentations or publication within peer-reviewed journals. Conferences provide an opportunity to travel to beautiful locations and share ideas with peers, usually. Articles are useful exercises to hone one's writing that may be utilized for future grant proposals and submission to other peer-reviewed journals. But we have yet to find a way to truly connect these dissemination efforts to the process of the work itself.
Our first impulse when preparing this presentation was to take you through the process of dialogic devising, as the deepest knowledge of the practice is through the practice. However, past efforts to provide embodied experience within the time constraints of a conference session have resulted in rather superficial introductions to the practice. So we have settled upon this format with a traditionally structured lecture accompanied by visual and auditory documentation of past projects to perhaps provide an approximation of the dialogic layering of elements within a polyvocal performance installation.
The real benefit of disseminating the work in academic settings is that it pushes us to further explore the theory and praxis of others who are pursuing work that resonates with what we are doing. When we first proposed a presentation of our then decade-long ongoing research in an academic setting, we felt a need to differentiate our practice from other approaches of devising. Drawing upon Paulo Freire's theory of dialogic action, we settled upon dialogic devising. The act of naming our practice spurred investigation into the theoretical bases of dialogical aesthetics and community-based dialogic art-making practices.
As we continue to follow our project where it has led us for over 2 decades, we are confident that dialogic devising is an apt and accurate description for an evolving method of art making that is in playful dialogue with place, with others, and the material of the process. Thank you.
Thank you.